Just open at page number 48. So far, what happened? Just let me tell. That we saw that Mrs. Pearson, though she was looking like Mrs. Fitzgerald, she had come to her own house to see that how Mrs. Fitzgerald was giving the treatment, harsh treatment to her family members. And when Mrs. Fitzgerald, she was looking like Mrs. Fitzgerald. So Mrs. Fitzgerald came, and at this George Pearson entered, and George Pearson, the husband of Mrs. Pearson, she actually, without exchanging any word, she went and sat on an armchair and lighted his pipe. Now, at this, the wife, though she was not real wife, but George Pearson didn't know. The wife actually insulted him in front of the neighbor by telling that he should know what good manners are, and next time anybody would come, he should behave behave like that. Now, at this, actually, the conversation was going on in between the husband and the wife, and the husband could not control his temper, and out of anger, he told his wife that I want to read this speech of George, that suddenly losing his temper, glaring at Mrs. Pearson and shouting, "All right, later hear it. What's the matter with you? Have you gone barmy or what?" Now, actually the husband accused the wife that you had called the neighbor to make, and you are making fun, you are insulting me in front of the neighbor to see all this fun. And the husband lost his temper and asked this to his wife, "What's the matter with you? Have you gone barmy or what?" Barmy means mad. So have you gone mad? Why you are behaving like this? Have you gone mad or what? The husband told this to the wife. Now the wife, what was wife's reaction? I feel that you have all got the page number. Where from I am reading? I'm starting from page number 48 now here. Now Mrs. Pearson jumping up savagely. "If you shout at me like that, George Pearson, I will slap your big fat silly face." Now the wife, it was not actual wife. It was Mrs. Fitzgerald, the rough and tough Mrs. Fitzgerald. But George did not know. Whatever, when the George told that have you gone barmy, at this the wife stood up savagely, means wildly, without any manners, and she actually threatened the husband that if you shout at me like this, I will slap your silly fat face. Now, it must be very much insulting, it must be very much insulting, especially in front of a neighbor, if somebody if wife was, threatening the husband of slapping his face. Now Fitzgerald, actually the real wife, she moaning means she started to cry. "Oh, no, please, Mrs. Fitzgerald." Now, she could not control that her husband getting so much rough treatment from Mrs. Fitzgerald. So she actually interfered because she feared that probably Mrs. Fitzgerald really would slap her husband, and that's why she told no, Mrs. Fitzgerald. Now, in doing so, she was so much anxious, she was so much excited that she had forgotten that she was actually looking like Mrs. Fitzgerald, and she had to play the role of Mrs. Fitzgerald. She had forgotten this, and she told as Mrs. Fitzgerald that here, "Oh, no, please, Mrs. Fitzgerald." Now, at this, Mrs. Pearson sits. Now, George, staring at her, bewildered. Now, George was staring at Mrs. Fitzgerald. What happened? Mrs. Fitzgerald was addressing to Mrs. Fitzgerald. Now, George told, "Either I am off my chump or you two are." Off my chump means, now George told, looking at Mrs. Fitzgerald, that either I have lost my mental balance or you too have lost your mental balance. "How do you mean? No, please, Mrs. Fitzgerald." Now George is asking to Mrs. Fitzgerald, how do you mean? No, Mrs. Fitzgerald. Look, you are Mrs. Fitzgerald, so why you are telling yourself to stop when you are not doing anything? Now George asked this question to Mrs. Fitzgerald. What's the problem? What had happened? I couldn't understand. Because you yourself, Mrs. Fitzgerald, and you have not done anything, so why you are telling yourself to stop? To tell her to stop, then there would be some sense in it. And George Pearson told this to Mrs. Fitzgerald, that you should tell her to stop, means you should tell my wife, Mrs. Pearson, to stop. Then there might be some sense in it. Now staring at Mrs. Pearson, now she looked at his wife and told, I think you must be tiddly. Tiddly means drunk. You have drunk. Now the husband told this to the wife, you have drunk. Now Pearson, again the wife, starting up savagely. Now again the wife told, say that again, George Pearson. The wife was, roughened up Mrs. Fitzgerald. So the wife actually the wife was not ready here. Mrs. Fitzgerald was not ready to tolerate anything, and that's why she told again, say that again, George Pearson. Now George, intimidated means getting frightened. Now George was really getting frightened of his wife and told, all right, because she really could not control his wife. And now she knew that if his wife got angry again, then the situation might go out of his hand, and that's why he just wanted to tranquilize the situation, and by telling this, all right. Now Doris entered, slept slowly. In that time, Doris, the daughter, she entered, looking miserable. Doris was looking very miserable, very bad, because she had heavily been insulted by her mother. She is still wearing the wrap, and Mrs. Pearson sits on the settee, and Doris was wearing the wrap. Wrap means that outer garment. She had not dressed herself yet. She just entered, and she came and sat on the settee. Now Mrs. Fitzgerald means actually Mrs. Pearson. Actually it is her mother. I believe we have not forgotten the theme that what we are reading. So here Mrs. Fitzgerald told, hello, Doris dear. Now here mother addressed to her daughter. Hello, Doris dear. Now Doris, miserably. Yes, she was miserable because she had, as I told, heavily been insulted. Hello, Mrs. Fitzgerald. Now Doris told, as if she lost all her energy. Now Mrs. Fitzgerald, actual mother, but Doris did not know. I thought you were going out with Charlie Spence tonight, and actually mother knew that her daughter was about to go out with Charlie Spence. So the mother asked this to Doris, I thought you were going out with Charlie Spence tonight. Now Doris annoyed, and Doris was dissatisfied. What's that to do with you? Doris was so much angry, but she could not express her anger towards her mother. So when Mrs. Fitzgerald asked this, that I thought you were about to go out with Charlie Spence that evening or that night, at this Doris became very angry towards Mrs. Fitzgerald and told, what's that to do with you? Now Mrs. Pearson, her mother, and sharply, with a severe, being serious, with a serious voice, stop that, mother threatened Doris, stop that. Now Mrs. Fitzgerald, nervous, no, it's all right. Now the real mother was telling, no, it's all right, because real mother could not tolerate that her daughter had been insulted by Mrs. Fitzgerald in such a way. And the real mother told, no, all right, severely. Now Mrs. Pearson, actual Fitzgerald, she told, it isn't all right. I wouldn't have a daughter of mine talking to anybody like that. Now answer Mrs. Fitzgerald properly, Doris, or go upstairs again. Now Doris looks wonderingly at her father. Now the mother told to Doris, no, it's not all right, because I don't want to have such a daughter who doesn't know the manners. And the mother told this to Doris, that you must say properly, or you must talk in a proper way to Mrs. Fitzgerald. Otherwise, if you can't, you go upstairs. Now the daughter actually looked to her father, because the daughter was asking her father to help in that condition. Now what was father's reaction? Now father, in despair, father was very much frustrated, despair, Don't look at me, I give it up, I just give it up. Now father told the daughter, don't look at me, I give it up. Means what the father told, that I had given up, means I have given up the effort of controlling your mother. I can't do anything. Don't look at me like this. Mother told. Actually, the father told to Doris. Now, Mrs. Pearson fiercely, well, answer her. And the mother was not ready to excuse Doris again. Mother has not forgotten. So the mother again told, well, answer her. Now, Doris, sulkily means with that dissatisfied expression, the daughter told, I was going out with Charlie Spence tonight, but now I have called it off. Doris told this to Mrs. Fitzgerald. Yes, I had a plan to go out with Charlie Spence, but now I have called it off. Now, called off means cancelled, you must know. Called off means cancelled. So, the daughter Doris told this to Mrs. Fitzgerald, though actually it was her real mother, but she did not know. That she, and she was looking like Mrs. Fitzgerald, so told her, yes, I had cancelled it. Now, Fitzgerald, oh, what a pity, dear. Why have you? Now, the mother, actually, though real mother, but looking like Fitzgerald, she asked to Doris, oh, what a pity. Oh, why have you, means why have you cancelled your visiting with Charlie Spence? Now, Doris, with a flash of temper, now Doris became very angry at this. Because, if you must know, my mother has been going on at mimicking me feel miserable and saying he has got buck teeth and is half-witted. Sorry. Now, at this, the daughter told to Mrs. Fitzgerald that really, if you want to know why I have cancelled my plan of going out with Charlie Spence, that you should know that my mother had mimicking me, my mother had been disappointing me, and not only that, she had insulted my boyfriend by telling buck teeth and half-witted, and that is the reason that I have cancelled my plan. She told this to Mrs. Fitzgerald. Now here Mrs. Fitzgerald, the real mother, rather bolder to Mrs. Pearson. Now Fitzgerald told this because no longer Fitzgerald could tolerate that actually her daughter and husband had been treated so roughly by Mrs. Fitzgerald. So she told, rather in a bolder voice, to Mrs. Pearson, oh, you shouldn't have said that. Actually, real mother told this to Mrs. Fitzgerald. You shouldn't have said that. Now, Pearson, sharply, Mrs. Fitzgerald, I will manage my family, you manage yours. Here, Fitzgerald told, though she was looking like Pearson, but she told to Mrs. Fitzgerald. When Pearson told this to Mrs. Fitzgerald, it was looking like this, but actually, Mrs. Fitzgerald was telling to Mrs. Pearson that I will manage my family, though we know it's not her family, it's actually Mrs. Pearson's family, but she told that I will manage my family and you manage yours. At this, George, grimly means here, in a sad voice, ticking her off now? Are you any? Now, the wife told this when Mrs. Pearson told this to Fitzgerald that you manage your families and let me manage my family. At this, the husband who was standing by that side, the husband told to his wife that now you ticking her out, ticking her off now. Ticking her off now means the husband was telling to the wife that now you are making angry to Mrs. Fitzgerald. Are you any? Why the husband told? Because a few minutes back, when when George Pearson did not exchange any word with Mrs. Fitzgerald, and actually came and sat on the armchair without saying anything, at this the wife was teaching him the manners. Now the husband told to his wife, now you yourself are making her angry, isn't it? Annie is the name of Mrs. Pearson, Annie Pearson. Now, Mrs. Pearson, even more grimly, again, Mrs. Pearson means the wife told, they're waiting for you at the club, George, don't forget. Again, the wife was insulting the husband. They are waiting at the club. There means the other people at the club. They are waiting at the club for you, George, don't forget. And don't you start crying again, Doris. Mother told this to Doris. Don't you start crying again. You should not start crying again. And the mother told to her husband, they are waiting at the club. Don't disappoint them. Go there. Now Fitzgerald getting up with a sudden decision. That's enough. Quite enough. Now the real mother and the real wife. She could not control it anymore. And she stood up and she told, "That's enough, quite enough." Sorry. Now George and Doris stare at bewildered, and both the daughter and father, they were very much confused. They were confused, and they looked at Mrs. Fitzgerald, or what Mrs. Fitzgerald wanted to tell. Now to George and Doris, now Mrs. Fitzgerald told, though it was looking like Mrs. Fitzgerald, but she was actually Pearson. Now she told to her own husband and own daughter, but we know it's Mrs. Fitzgerald was telling this to Pearson and Mr. George Pearson and Doris Pearson. Now listen, you too. She was telling this, means actually it is Mrs. Pearson, but she was looking like Fitzgerald. She told, "Now listen, you too. I want to have a private talk with Mrs. Fitz," she corrects herself hastily, "with Mrs. Pearson. So I will be obliged if you will have us alone for a few minutes." Now she told to George Pearson and Doris that, "Look, I want to have a private talk with Mrs. Fitz now." Mrs. Fitzgerald was telling this to them. Apparently she was Mrs. Fitzgerald. So she was telling to them that, "I want to have a private talk with Mrs. Fitz," means she wanted to have a talk with Mrs. Fitzgerald. That Mrs. Pearson wants to say, but it was Mrs. Fitzgerald, though she was originally Mrs. Pearson, but here the husband and daughter did not know that. So again also, it was a slip of tongue, almost slip of tongue. So she told, she was looking like Mrs. Fitzgerald, but she told that, "I have a private talk with Mrs. Fitz." It should be Mrs. Pearson, but she corrected herself hastily. "With Mrs. Pearson. So I will be obliged if you will leave us alone for a few minutes." And she told, "I will be obliged. I will be very much thankful to all of you, to both of you, if you leave us alone for a few minutes. I will let you know when we have finished." And here Fitzgerald told this to George and Doris, that she would let them know, she would tell them when they have finished their discussion, private discussion. "So go on, please, and I promise you that you wouldn't regret it. There is something here that only I can deal with." And Fitzgerald actually assured George Pearson and Doris Pearson that, "Please leave us because I am having a private talk with Mrs. Pearson, and I'm confirming that for this you must not regret for this." Regret means feeling sorry for doing anything. And she had ensured both father and daughter that for this, as you are leaving us alone in this room, you must not be feeling sorry afterwards for going out from this room, and I will let you know where we have completed our discussion. Now George, rising, "I'm glad somebody can," and not only that, Fitzgerald told that there is something that only I can deal with, that only I can manage. So you two please excuse us, please go away from here. Now George, rising, "I'm glad somebody can." The husband told, "Okay, I'm glad that somebody can." Somebody can means, yes, I have not controlled my wife. "Cause I can't." Cause means because I can't. "Come on, Doris." So the husband told, "Okay, I couldn't control my wife. It's good that somebody could control her. It's good. Okay, come on, Doris." Now he called his daughter. Now George and Doris exit left. Now George, both the father and daughter, they had gone from that room. As they go, Mrs. Fitzgerald moves to left of the small table and sits. She eagerly beckons Mrs. Pearson to do the same thing. Beckons means a gesture with hand or head. A gesture with hand or head. So now Mrs. Fitzgerald, whenever both George and Doris had gone out of that room, now Mrs. Fitzgerald had come and sat by the side of Mrs. Pearson. Actually, nobody was there in the room, and now she implored Mrs. Fitzgerald to do the same. Do the same means to exchange their soul and come back to their original self. Now Mrs. Fitzgerald. Now here they were asking with they are not playing the role of one another because nobody was also there in the room. So Mrs. Fitzgerald here. "Mrs. Fitzgerald, we must change back now. We really must." And Pearson, "Why?" And Fitzgerald is telling to Fitzgerald that Fitzgerald means actually she was looking like Fitzgerald, and now she was telling this to original Fitzgerald that we must change back now. We really must. We must change back to original self. Pearson rising. Why? Actually, Pearson was enjoying, she told Pearson means actual Fitzgerald. She was not interested to change right then. Now Fitzgerald, because this has gone far enough. Fitzgerald means actual Pearson told, no, this has gone far enough. I can see they are all miserable and I can't bear it. And the real mother told, yes, I can't see all miserable. They are in a very pitiable condition. They have been in pitiable condition. They have heavily been insulted by you. And really, I can't bear it. Bear it means I can't tolerate this. Now Pearson means actual Fitzgerald. A bit more of the same would do them good, making a great difference already. She moves to right of the table and sits, and here the real Fitzgerald told, oh, a bit more of the same would do them good. Means the way I had been treating with them, a bit more of it would do them good. Okay, because why I have been doing this, I have already reached to my aim, but a bit more would do them good, making a great difference already. And Mrs. Fitzgerald was very much confident that really all the family members, he was able to make really a great difference to the family members as well. Now she moves to the right of the table and sits. Now Mrs. Fitzgerald means actual Pearson, no, I can't stand any more of it. The real mother and wife told, no, I can't tolerate anymore. I really can't. We must change back. Hurry up, please, Mrs. Fitzgerald. Now, here Mrs. Pearson was imploring, urging, requesting, pleading to Mrs. Fitzgerald that please, we should change back to our original self. Now, Mrs. Pearson means actual Fitzgerald. Well, if you insist means to tell something repeatedly. If you insist, now Fitzgerald. Yes, I do. Please, please. Now, Mrs. Fitzgerald means Mrs. Pearson told, yes, I tell you. Now, she snatches her hands across the table eagerly. Mrs. Pearson takes them. Now, Mrs. Fitzgerald had given the hands to Mrs. Pearson, means Mrs. Pearson had given the hand to Mrs. Fitzgerald, and Mrs. Fitzgerald had hold them. Now, Mrs. Pearson and Mrs. Fitzgerald stare at each other, muttering exactly as before, Aristhatadam, Aristatalam, Aristatalam Dambuna. Don't forget that this mantra, when Mrs. Fitzgerald chanted, for the first time when they were exchanging their soul. Now here, Mrs. Fitzgerald, on request of Mrs. Pearson, she had done the same, and she told that she chanted that mantra, Aristatalam, Aristatadam, Aristatalam, Aristatalam Dambuna. They carry out the same action as before, going lax and then coming to life. Lax means already lifeless, and after they were holding each other's hand, and after chanting this mantra, both of them became lax, as if both of them became lifeless. And why not? Because the soul of each of this each other's body has exchanged. Now, by this time, of course, they become their proper personalities, and they exchanged, and they come to their original soul or original self. Now here Mrs. Fitzgerald was real Mrs. Fitzgerald, and Pearson became real Pearson. Now Mrs. Fitzgerald, well, I enjoyed that, Fitzgerald told. Now Pearson, I didn't. Mother Pearson told, no. Now Fitzgerald, well, you ought to have done. Now listen. Now Fitzgerald told to Pearson, you should. Now Fitzgerald, actually they have come to their original self. And original self. And now Fitzgerald was telling this to Pearson. Now listen, Mrs. Pearson, don't go soft on them again, else it will all have been wasted. Now Fitzgerald told the most important thing. Mrs. Fitzgerald told this to Mrs. Pearson. Don't go soft on them again. Means here Fitzgerald warned Mrs. Pearson, you must not be so soft again on them. Otherwise, all have been wasted. Otherwise, the situation that I have already created, it'll all have been wasted. Now Pearson, I will try not to, Mrs. Fitzgerald. Now Pearson, the mother told, I will try, because the mother was not sure that he would be very strict with them, and he would continue this behavior as Mrs. Fitzgerald had started with them. She was not sure. So she told, I will try not to, Mrs. Fitzgerald. Mrs. Pearson told this to Fitzgerald, that I will not try to be soft on them. So today it's time up. Thank you for joining my class, and we will continue again where we are leaving it today. So thank you very much for being with me. Meet you again in our next class.